tonight from organizations who are doing incredible work mobilizing to fight back against Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and the other billionaires who brought him to power as they try to implement their destructive Project 2025 agenda. Our chat is open, so please introduce yourself and let us know your CWA local and where you're from. If you have any questions for our speakers, please use the Q&A feature to submit them. We'll get to as many of those as our time allows. And now I'm going to hand it over to our Senior Director for Government Affairs, Shane Larson, to introduce our first guest.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, Beth, President Cummings is here. We were going to start with an introduction, I believe.
Yeah, so I think we'll have Isabella introduce President Cummings.
Yep.
Hello, good evening, CWA family. My name is Isabella Newell, and I am a proud member of the UPD CWA, and I'm also a workplace rep for our union. I've been working at the University of California, San Diego, researching strategies to combat childhood obesity in the Latino community. 26% of Latino children in California are impacted by obesity, so it's clear that we need more tools to combat this huge problem. I'm sure that a lot of people can relate to the problems that our employer has been causing for our local. I and many of my coworkers were misclassified. They tried to take away our healthcare, and despite our university having high funding, sometimes our laptops for the research project wouldn't even work. So ultimately, it became clear to me that a lot of the grant funding that we relied on was going to be at risk amidst this new political environment. Ultimately, it became clear that a lot of the grant funding that we relied on was going to be at risk. And last month, I and many of my coworkers were laid off. My last day in the office was actually this past Saturday, and now the Trump administration is making things even worse. I'm sure that you have all heard about the funding freeze that Trump put into place for all grants and federal assistance. And thanks to both the immediate public pressure that we placed on him and lawsuits that challenged this clearly illegal freeze, most of the funds that were cut off have been turned back on, but not all of them. In fact, NIH grants that supported projects like mine have still remained frozen. So this puts even more jobs at risk. It hurts us at the bargaining table, and it slows progress on things like reducing childhood obesity. My coworkers and I have been fighting back. At the bargaining table, in protests and flyering, we're making clear that we won't go along with cuts that harm both us and the communities that we serve. CWA public sector members across the country have been calling our senators and governors, demanding that they stand up to protect the funding that allows us to do our jobs right and serve our communities. And now I am very proud to introduce our CWA president, Claude Cummings, who is going to talk about how our whole union is fighting back to protect our jobs and our rights. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isabella. The work you do is so important, and the critical work of thousands of researchers all across the country has been disrupted and in some cases eliminated because the billionaires who helped elect Donald Trump want bigger tax cuts. It is shameful, just absolutely shameful. Many of our CWA executive board members are online with us tonight, including Secretary of Treasury Amina Salam, District 1 Vice President Dennis Traynor, District 213 Vice President Mike Davis, District 3 Vice President Richard Honeycutt, District 4 Vice President Linda Hinton, District 7 Vice President Susan McAllister, Telecommunications and Technology Sector Vice President Lisa Bolton, Public Health and Education Workers Sector Vice President Margaret Cook, IUE CWA President Carl Kennebrew, NABET, CWA President Charlie Braco is on, Northeast Region at-large Diversity Member Gloria Middleton is on, Central Region at-large Diversity Member Reggie Small is on, and Western Region at-large Diversity Member Keith Gibbs is on. Thank you all, Executive Board members, for being on. And they work tirelessly for our members and retirees every day. Thank you all so much. And thanks to all of you who have joined our call tonight, because you know that what is going on is absolutely shameful and you want to do something about it. We all want to do something about it. CWA is focused on the attacks on our members and our union freedoms. We will lead on these fights in the courts, the halls of Congress, and through direct action. But there are so many attacks coming at our communities that I have invited the leaders of 3 other organizations that we work with closely on our call tonight. We share similar values. We want everyone in our communities to have the freedom to be themselves, pursue their dreams, and have a good life. And we each have different strengths. Some of you may be passionate about an issue that our union doesn't have the capacity or expertise to mobilize on. By connecting with these organizations, you can engage on these issues and build connections with others who may want to show up for our fights. Make no mistake, almost every executive order that Donald Trump has issued is an attack on working people. Although most of the people who voted for Donald Trump aren't billionaires, CEOs, or white supremacists, these people are his base. Their agenda, also known as Project 2025, has become his agenda. Think about his attempt to dismantle diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility programs. It is an attack on working people and our civil rights and an effort to divide us, plain and simple. Donald Trump thinks he can roll back 60 years of history with a stroke of the pen. You know, one of the demands at the 1963 March on Washington was to end discrimination by the federal government and its contractors. In 1965, Lyndon Johnson signed an executive order to do that. It's been in place. It's been in place consistently for almost 60 years. Donald Trump not only reversed that order, he took it a step further by requiring companies that do business with the government to certify that they are not making any attempts to promote diversity or equality in hiring. I would never have been hired at AT&T without the federal government's commitment to ensuring equal opportunity. I applied for a job at AT&T in 1973, shortly after the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission ordered the company to hire more women and minorities into well-paid technical positions to make up for the years of discrimination. One day I decided to go in person to check up on my application. A supervisor there looked at me and said she was just going to give me a call to offer me a job. That's not the case. She saw exactly what I looked like. That's why she hired me. If the federal government hadn't made AT&T stop discriminating, it would never have gotten the job. I would have never gotten the job. The hiring managers would have kept hiring people who looked like the people who were already there, white male technicians. And while there are some people who think that would be a good thing, most of us do not. Most Americans value fairness. We believe in prosperity, justice, and security for all, not just a privileged few. But people are giving up. They're tired of the endless fight against corporate control. Too many have thrown up their hands and forfeited their power to a strongman who claims that he alone can fix it. He has filled his cabinet with billionaires interested only in amassing even more wealth for themselves. He has kneecapped merit staffing rules that make sure agencies serve the people and illegally have given Elon Musk access to our sensitive personal data and the ability to cut off funds for programs he doesn't like. Our union and the entire labor movement are in a unique position. While people are losing trust in most American institutions, they are gaining trust in unions. Your organizing, your mobilizing, your contract fights and strikes are giving people hope that they can regain control over their lives from the giant corporations that have stolen our time and the profits of our labor to enrich executives and investors. We must not stop. We must not stop. Hope and vision for a better future for our families and our loved ones and our communities is the fuel that powers our movement. In a little bit, you'll hear from Curtis Hero, CWA's National Field Director, about some of our upcoming legislative and political campaigns. Our Political Action Fund is critical to all of these efforts. If you already give, please consider making an extra donation. If you aren't giving yet, now is the time. There are links in the chat to get you started. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Leah Greenberg.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you tonight. And I just want to start by expressing my deepest empathy for folks who are already being directly, personally impacted by this reckless, illegal crime spree led by Donald Trump and Elon Musk. We are just here in solidarity with you, and we are here to fight with you. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Indivisible organizing model and what we do and how you can get involved if you're interested, and then happy to stick around for questions later. Indivisible is a movement of thousands of local volunteer grassroots pop-up groups all over the country, overwhelmingly volunteer-led. It is a movement of people who raised their hands and said, I got to do something, brought together a community and started organizing. Our big focus is around using the levers of power wherever you are and building that power wherever you are. And we really root ourselves in how do we actually, in a strategic analysis of what makes our elected officials tick, what makes them do something, what makes them not do something, and how we can influence those levers if we organize locally and smartly and strategically. Every elected official, after all, wants to get reelected or wants to go on to the next higher position. That is true of the good ones. That is true of the bad ones. They all understand that they have to do certain things in order to stay in office. And if you understand those things, they want good press. They want to look responsive. They want to look like they're in touch with their constituents. You can organize to influence them. So that is what we do. We bring together people all over the country who focus on their elected officials, who show up on, over the phones, in person, at town halls, at meetings, at marches and rallies. We show up, we advocate, we never give an inch. And we've got a very clear mandate and set of plays in this moment to fight back against Donald Trump, against Elon Musk, against the MAGA Project 2025 agenda. The first thing that we are doing is collectively, nationally, we are all pushing back on Project 2025. That means, again, focusing on our own elected officials and pushing them hard. We got Republicans making sure that they understand how much opposition there is in their own districts to them being rubber stamp enablers of this horrific agenda. If we got Democrats pushing them to fight with everything that they have got and to not reject business as usual politics during a period when we are in a constitutional crisis and folks and lives are on the line. So we're pushing everybody on the national level to try to make sure that we stop Project 2025, and what we can't stop, we exact a political cost for it when it comes time for the next election. Second thing that we do is we're organizing locally to make sure that our elected officials are playing hardball to fight back against the Project 2025 agenda in our cities and in our states. Particularly if you've got a state with Democratic legislature or a Democratic governor, there are a ton of different levers and sources of power within the states that we didn't even have 8 years ago when Donald Trump took office the first time. In 2016, there were 5 Democratic trifectas across the country. And by trifecta, I mean a place where the governor and the legislature are under the Democratic control. There are now 14. That is a huge amount of cultural and economic and political power if we're organized to use it. And so we are going to ask, what is my governor doing to protect me? What is he doing to protect the policies I care about? What is he doing to protect environmental policies, labor rights, civil rights? How are we actually pushing them to step in as the federal government steps back to make sure that the things that we care about are protected, that the people that we care about are protected? How are they going to respond as Trump's mass deportations ramp up? This is the kind of stuff that we have to push across the country to make sure that our local elected officials are responsive to what we want. And the third thing that we're all doing together is we are thrown in to protect and win elections, because we have got elections coming this year in Virginia and New Jersey. We have got elections coming next year around the country. We have got to get ready right now. We've got to fight back against the election denier movement, because those folks, unfortunately, have not gone away. And then the final thing that we are doing all across the country is we are organizing in solidarity with communities under threat. We know that the MAGA agenda is a divide and conquer agenda. We know that they go after vulnerable targets and communities with extraordinary cruelty in order to distract while they loot the federal government in order to give tax breaks to the wealthy. We're not going to stand for that. We stand in solidarity with folks who are under threat. We organize to protect immigrants who are being threatened by the mass deportation agenda, to support trans kids who are being turned into a political punching bag by this administration, to support organized labor as it comes under threat from an administration of billionaires and corporations. Wherever it is, we want to be standing together because that is our core to our mission. It is core to our name. Indivisible, we stand. So if sounds like something that you're interested in, we got Indivisible groups all over the country. And if we've got a map on our website, indivisible.org, and a sign up form if you'd like to get connected to your local group. And if you don't see one where you live, we're starting new groups. We've had more than 400 forms since Election Day 2024. So if you just have to start showing up, it is a movement, like I said, of people who just decided to show up one day. So you are welcome if you would like to join us.
Leah, thank you so much, and thank you for the work that Indivisible does. I know that that this organization was formed as a response to Trump's election back in 2016, and the work that you have done has just been absolutely outstanding. Under Leah's leadership, Indivisible has kept fighting back against powerful billionaires and extremist politicians. But along that way, they've become one of the key go-to allies in fighting to protect workers' rights, including becoming one of the key partners pushing for the PRO Act. So thank you so much for your comments on tonight. Now I'm excited to introduce our next speaker, Rana Epting, the Executive Director of MoveOn. Especially under her leadership, MoveOn has been a great partner for us, both in electing pro-worker candidates and in pushing a legislative agenda that supports the needs of working people. MoveOn hasn't just been an ally, they've been a true partner both for us as CWA and the labor movement as a whole. That's no surprise, especially since before working at MoveOn, Rana was a longtime staffer at SEIU, helping their members organize and mobilize. And now MoveOn is doing some truly excellent work, training people for the fights ahead as we face attacks from the Trump administration. Rana, thank you so much for joining us on tonight.
Thank you, Claude. And that was such a nice introduction. I appreciate it. And wanted to say hello to everyone here for joining this evening. And I'm just so grateful for your leadership and the leadership of labor. I know organizations like MoveOn, Indivisible, everybody, we wouldn't be anywhere without unions. Our families wouldn't be anywhere without unions. So it's incredibly important and very grateful for everything that you all do. Many of you have probably heard about MoveOn. We've been around for 26 years. We're the largest rapid response political campaigning or digital first organization in the country. We have members in every state and every congressional district. Heck, many of you might be a MoveOn member yourselves already, but with our friends in Leah, who is a good friend of mine and of MoveOn's, and Maurice, you'll hear from later from Working Families Party, and many other state and national groups who aren't here tonight, we have been working together to do two things. Number one, hold Trump, Elon, and Republicans accountable and expose their dangerous agenda, which is designed to distract and overwhelm us while they steal from our pocketbooks of hardworking Americans by slashing critical programs that we all rely on, only to enrich themselves. That is the story. That is the reality of the moment we're in right now. That is priority number one. Number two, support and push Democratic lawmakers to use every tool at their disposal to fight with us and for us to stop the Project 2025 agenda. And then we're doing all of this at MoveOn in a way that helps us rebuild a winning and durable coalition that sets us up to retake governing power through elections in 2026 and 2028. So some of this might sound familiar to what Leah said. We work together in partnership when we play to each other's strengths and complement each other's weaknesses. So we have MoveOn, the way we're a little different is we have millions of members all across the country. Our role is to provide the masses with the tools they need to organize locally and push for progress. So whether that's about creating your own petition campaign, gathering those signatures and taking it to lawmakers, or calling lawmakers and organizing meetings with your members of Congress or your senators, or attending or hosting a rally to apply pressure to decision makers or more, that's what we are here to do. And our main role is in moments of heightened public outrage to leverage that power, leverage that outrage to give people a meaningful way to act together to apply pressure on a concerted target. So what are we doing right now? In response to the second Trump administration, we just launched our ACT program, Action Community Training, and you can find what I'm sharing now or join at moveon.org/act, and I'll put it here in the chat so you guys have it. But we welcome you to join us. If you want to take more action on the slew of issues, on the big political fight in front of us, this is a place for you to sign up. Our program gives folks the tools they need to act, to take individual actions like write letters to the editor, sign petitions, and attend rallies. But we're also offering community. The antidote to disconnection and despair is what that MAGA wants us to feel is community. You'll be part of a national mobilizer community, which meets both online and offline. So our model is we don't have chapters. We have members that raise their hand and say, I'll lead an organizing campaign in my community in partnership with thousands of other MoveOn members across the country. That's how we take action together. So, and then the T stands for training, in which we equip our folks with the tools they need to successfully take part in these actions, whether that's communication and media skills, persuasive conversations at the dinner table, or issue-specific narrative development. We do it all. And we also train on organizing basics, which I know CWA members are pros at, but like things like how to have a successful one-on-one, community building, storytelling, etc. But we are clear-eyed at MoveOn that this isn't 2016 or 2017. This is a different moment that requires a different approach. We're trying to be very strategic about how we take on these fights so that we don't just win on the substance and stop bad things from happening, but we also win the politics and set us up to take back power in the future. So we have already seen a historic number of member energy making phone calls over the last several weeks, attending rallies, signing petitions, and more. And you can join MoveOn. We welcome you to this community. If you go to moveon.org/act, that's where you can join us, and we'll reach out to you and bring you into this community and start taking action together. And then the other link I put in there is our #1 petition right now. It's moveon.org/stop President Elon. So if you don't want to take higher level actions and organize a group in your community, you can sign this petition. And that's a way you can stay informed about individual actions you can take here and there that you will take with millions of others throughout the country in moments where we believe we can make a concerted impact if we act together. So that is us. And thank you for having me, and happy to stay and answer questions later.
Thank you so very much for your presentation on tonight. Our next speaker should be familiar to many of you. Maurice Mitchell is the Executive Director of the Working Families Party. CWA has a long history of partnership with the Working Families Party, having been critical to the founding of the party back in 1998. Since then, CWA has worked closely with the Working Families Party in developing an independent political movement that fights corporate politicians at all levels of government and for the issues that working families care most about. Mo is a good friend to many of us at CWA, and especially to me. I know many of you heard his remarks at our legislative and political conference last year about the threats of Project 2025 for working people that are now seeing it play out. We're lucky to have Mo able to join us tonight to talk about how the Working Families Party is fighting back and how CWA members can continue to work to support and join our efforts. Also, before you come on, Mo, I just want to announce that Vice President Frank Arce from District 9 is also on the call tonight. Thank you, Mo.
All right. Brother Claude Cummings, our great president of the mighty CWA. Thank you so much for your partnership and your friendship and your leadership. Thank you to my brothers and sisters in CWA. Thank you to my sisters Leah and Rana for all of your work, all of your leadership. It is a humbling honor to be before all of you, truly is. But before I go any further, I want to invite you all to ground yourselves because so much is taking place. Elon Musk is now speaking from the Oval Office. Project 2025 is off to the races. They even said that they're trying to, quote unquote, flood the zone with all of their billionaire fascist shenanigans. So I want everybody to ground ourselves. Just take a deep breath in and out. Because in these trying times, I do have good news. And this might sound a little crazy, but this is the beginning of the end of the MAGA movement. And again, I know it might seem hard to believe when you see Elon Musk in the Oval Office, or when you hear of some of the crazy things that they're doing every single day. But as a student of history, to me, the signs are there. One thing about fascists is that they always overplay their hand. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. So I don't know about you, but I've seen people online. I've bumped into people I went to high school with. I've talked to cousins who are now clear that they've been had by MAGA and the billionaires. We're also seeing more and more buyer's remorse from Trump voters. Remember, many of them didn't endorse his full agenda. Some of these voters were just fed up with the status quo. Some thought that Trump would lower the prices of groceries, the price of eggs. I believe we're going to see growing discontent with Trump, and as well as the unelected billionaire that he's got riding shotgun with him. I see it. I can feel it. But just because this is the last gasp doesn't mean victory is certain. That's why we organize. What we do in these moments really matter. What we do, our strategy can fracture the MAGA coalition and win a government we deserve. And that serves all people. I believe that. And I'll tell you just a bit about what WP is doing now. In addition to the national mobilization, we're building grassroots campaigns in many of the most competitive Republican-held congressional districts, from New York to Pennsylvania to Colorado to California. And we're going to put the squeeze on Republican members of Congress by forcing them to choose between their party or the people, their party or their district, on issues like cuts to Medicaid and Head Start and food stamps, as well as on issues like tax cuts for billionaires. So the Trump position is deeply unpopular. So we're going to make sure Republican members of Congress hear from their districts. We're going to rally and hold town halls and drive media stories about their votes. They'll either have to break with Trump or pay a political price. And since the margins in Congress are so narrow, if only a few Republicans get cold feet about the idea of siding with the billionaires against the people, it could throw their whole agenda into chaos. So we have leverage if we strike and if we're clear. You know, I remember a story a few days before Election Day. I was in North Philly and I knocked on the door of a woman she was in her 20s, and I'll never forget what she said to me. She said, "I don't cry anymore. Nobody on the block cries anymore because of the gun violence we experienced. And so many people on our block are dead already. And when we hear of another neighbor dying, we don't cry. It's become so much like happenstance. And I don't know if my vote will matter, if my vote will change those conditions. So many working class people are dealing with the same conditions that she brought to me when I knocked on her door. And I don't know how or even if she ended up voting, but I often think about her. Our job, our obligation is to win people like her over to our side. People who, at the end of the day, didn't show up, and people who, for whatever reason, are good working people, but got conned by Donald Trump. And that isn't just about strategy or tactics. We can't phone bank or door knock our way into being in right relationship with people. That is organizing. That's the work that CWA does every single day, building a bigger we that could fit all of those folks, every single person against the billionaire class. So my challenge to you is twofold. One, find one new person to truly connect with, maybe in the union. And then after you build that connection, you organize with them. And the second thing, I'm explicitly inviting you all to come closer into community with the Working Families Party. If you're already a member, thank you so much. And if not, I invite you to pull out your cell phones and text the word union to 30403. If you can stay together and stay organized, if we could build upon this opportunity for working people to see ourselves, regardless of where we come from, or our skin color, or our gender, against the billionaires, we can build a movement and a party and a union of our dreams while we defeat the fascists and the billionaire bosses. And that CWA is how we all get free. Thank you.
Thank you, Maurice.
Good evening, CWA family. So I'm honored to be here with you all to talk about all of the work that CWA members are doing across the country to ensure that we're fighting back to protect our union and to protect our families. As we've discussed, it feels like they're flooding the zone. Every day we see a new attack on the news, right? What I often think about is the time period our union was forged in the aftermath of the Great Depression, when forming a union could lead to folks getting attacked on the street, right, by Pinkertons and local police forces, where folks were standing in bread lines. And despite all of that, CWA was formed as a militant fighting union, both on the shop floor and fighting for political power. Over the course of decades, CWA members, just like you on this call, have stood up and demanded that our representatives legislate on behalf of us as working people rather than the millionaires and billionaires. This is our time to stand up at a scale we have not seen since our formation and make it clear we're in the fight to defend our working families. And with that, already CWA has launched a series of campaigns where we're asking our members to take action, have these conversations on the shop floor, and contact your representatives and the building of political power. I want to ask if everybody can go to the chat right now. We just posted a link to our CWA toolkit, which provides a series of links for how you can get directly plugged in to the fight to build working class power. First off, one of the most immediate ways to get involved is to click our cwa.org/volunteer link. Our CWA legislative political leaders from across the country are looking for folks to help in this fight. So please go ahead and bang down on that link, fill out your information, and we'll make sure that our folks are following up with you in your state to plug you in to these key fights. Secondly, I want to highlight a series of active campaigns we are moving that directly impact our members. The first is the fight to make sure that we have a quorum at the National Labor Relations Board. As folks mentioned, right, we saw not only the firing of the general counsel of the National Labor Relations Board, one of our own, Jennifer Abruzzo. We also saw the firing of board member Gwen Wilcox. And CWA members are standing up and fighting back. In your toolkit, you will find a link to our online action, which will allow you to send a direct letter to your representative in Congress, your senator in Congress, asking them to pressure the Trump administration to reinstate board member Wilcox. This is crucial in ensuring we have fairness and access to worker rights at the National Labor Relations Board. Secondly, right, we're proactive in CWA. We're not just waiting to respond. We've gotten word, right? These millionaire and billionaire think tanks, right? The Alex of the world. We know that they're the ones crafting the bills for the current powers that be in Congress and that the Trump regime want. And one of those bills or one of those policies could involve actually increasing what they consider Cadillac high value tax plans, disproportionately impacts us, union healthcare plans, right? And put a tax on our members. Many of our folks' healthcare plans could be impacted by this. And so we're getting out ahead of it. Please go ahead and click. We have an online action to protect our union healthcare. So go ahead and fill that up. That will immediately contact your legislator and demand that they not support a health benefit tax if it comes down the pike, right? They want to do this tax so that they could fund their tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires. We're going to say, right? So please, please, please fill that out. Thirdly, and we heard from our union family earlier on this call from Upti, right? This attack on the grants and funding that's impacting our public sector sisters and brothers. And we're standing unified, all of CWA, and fighting back against that. We have an online action for you to fill out. We have a printable flyer for you to take to your worksite and have this conversation with your fellow members. Let them know CWA or members are under attack and we need to fight back. Fourthly, we have to protect our work, and that makes sure that public funding continues to support broadband build-out. One of our great victories under the Biden administration that is now under attack. Similarly, we have another online action. Just takes a minute to fill out. We additionally have a printable flyer that, once again, you could print out, take to your worksite, and have these conversations so all of our members know what is the attacks that are directly impacting us, and most importantly, how we can fight back. There's hundreds and thousands of CWA members just like you on this call. We have an ability to make a massive impact and disrupt the Trump anti-worker agenda. Now, lastly, before I sign off, I have to make mention of our CWA Political Action Fund. We know more than ever, we're going toe-to-toe with corporate America. We got a billionaire in our White House trying to destroy programs that help working people, right? Now, we'll never have as much money as Elon Musk, but as I mentioned, we got hundreds of thousands of us. If everyone said, you know what, I'll put 5 on it to go toe-to-toe with the corporate oligarchs and elect pro-worker champions, that's a heck of a lot of resources. And so please, you'll find a link to give to our CWA Political Action Fund. I give $30 a pay period. Every year I increase it because I know that goes to support pro-worker, pro-CWA champions to be in the halls of power and fight for us. So, team, there's plenty of ways to get involved. We look forward to seeing you out there in the field.
Thank you so much, Curtis. That was really inspiring. And there's great information in that toolkit. We will be sending out links to everything that's been mentioned in this call tonight to folks who registered for the call and other folks who were interested in the call and couldn't make it tonight. So you'll have all of that information for yourself to take action, and then hopefully for you to share with your CWA friends and others in your communities to get them involved in all the important issues that Curtis mentioned and that we are all fighting for. Now we have a few minutes to take a couple of questions. We've gotten some good questions in. I'm going to start with Curtis, actually. And we've had some questions about how we're working with the AFL-CIO, either nationally or at the state and local level, and whether they're doing anything that people can plug into.
Oh, 100%. We're working with the AFL-CIO and all labor partners at every level. Best way to get plugged in will be through your local LP team who's working with the AFL-CIO in your state. We're currently talking to the AFL-CIO about a week of action coming up next week. And so we'll have plenty of collaborative actions coming with the AFL-CIO. Best way to get plugged in if you're not already involved with your local labor council will be connecting with your local legislative political team in your state.
Cool. Thank you so much, Curtis. Got another question. This one I think would be good for you, Rana. how can we negate Trump's executive orders, for instance, pulling out of WHO, the World Health Organization, and the Paris Climate Accords? Can local and state governments pledge to honor these agreements? While this might not be seen as an immediate CWA issue, in the long run it is. So
Yeah.
anything you can shed light on those?
Well, there is a slew of executive orders, so each one deserves its own critical analysis about how we can defeat them. Some of them, I'll just speak broadly, the president can issue, and they're perfectly legal. And there's a whole slew of them that are not, and that are stuck in litigation. And there are a number of entities out there that are, and lawyers that are working to challenge these executive orders through the courts, and they're being successful so far in gathering a number of injunctions. Several were issued today. And I think the big question, the big threat, and the thing that so many of us are watching is that if the courts tell Donald Trump this is not legal, does Donald Trump abide by that court order or not? And if he doesn't respect the courts, many of them are saying, many of the rulings are saying this is actually an act a Congress needs to do, not the administration. If he doesn't respect the courts, that's kind of what if you're noticing in the news and in papers, you're reading a lot about a constitutional crisis. That is what people are talking about when the three branches of government break down. And the recourse there, if that happens, is us. It's only us. It's us coming together, applying pressure, protesting, mass organizing to stop it. And so we are all on alert. We are watching this closely. And I think the biggest concern is, are the rest of our friends, family, neighbors, are they watching it closely? Because it is very convoluted, and it's an issue around, procedure and process, which doesn't necessarily always make the headlines in your social media feed. But I think, if anything, I feel heartened that there is a team of litigators out there that are out there to protect the Constitution, to protect the rights of people. They've been working overtime since the day Donald Trump stepped into office to evaluate these executive orders and challenge the ones that actually that the president actually does not have authority on.
Great, thank you so much. Next question we have, I think would be good for Leah. Democrats are showing very little fight against Trump in Project 2025. What demands are we making, or can we make, of our Democratic elected officials to make clear that Trump cannot be allowed to bulldoze our rights and the Constitution?
A great question. So I would say I would break it down into a few different things. I think we should be thinking about each of our elected officials in terms of what is their leverage and what are their unique attributes, right? So the Senate obviously has been a place that we've been focusing on a lot over the last couple of weeks, because the Senate has a lot more procedural tools than the House of Representatives. And so our asks for our senators have been about using your leverage, using the tools in the procedural toolbox in the Senate to slow things down, to ensure that we're not doing business as usual Senate procedure while a massive crime spree is taking place across the federal government. And just to be generally, by doing so, elevate exactly how serious the situation is, right? So that's been our ask up till now, focusing on the Senate in particular and on confirmations. Don't vote for the nominees. Don't give them any procedural shortcuts. Do stuff like what they did last week, where the senators took all 30 hours of floor time to talk about Russell Vogt before confirming, or before he was voted on for OMB director. So trying to continue to do that stuff. Like every day that these folks get in office is an extra day that they can do damage to regular people around the country. So again, slow down, slow what we can't stop, and make sure people understand this is a crisis. For other elected officials, we're talking to them about, when you have leverage, how are you going to use it? There is an upcoming period, there's going to be an upcoming budget negotiation, right? And Republicans have a trifecta, which means that they should be able to pass a budget by themselves, because their party is I don't want to say the word that I was going to say, because their party's a mess. They are probably going to go look to Democrats for votes as well. What are Democrats going to say in return? Are they going to say, we need assurances that you are going to stop this crime spree in exchange for support? So talking to Democrats about, when you have leverage, how are you going to use it to ensure that this administration returns to basic respect for the rule of law, and basic respect for the well-being and funk programs that serve American people. So that's kind of like what we have been focusing on talking to Democrats about. But then the other piece of this is just using your microphone, right? Are you giving press conferences? Are you back home in your district doing town halls? Are you trying to raise the alarm to your own constituents? Because a lot of people, the way they're going to know this is an emergency is if you tell them that it's an emergency. So are you doing what you can to collectively make the case that this is out of control?
Great. Thank you so much. Maurice, I have a question for you. Don't third parties like Working Families Party split the vote and make it easier for MAGA candidates to win?
Wow, that is a wonderful question. And there are all types of third parties. I like to say that the Working Families Party is a non-delusional, grassroots, bottom-up third party. And so we don't split the vote. We don't spoil. We create coalitions of working people across difference. And if you think about last election, think about all those people who didn't identify as Republicans or Democrats, but we're working people just like you and me who deserve a fair shot and a solid democracy. What we've noticed is that over time, more and more people aren't affiliating with the two-party system, with either party. They're politically homeless. WFP gives them a political home that they could believe in, a political home that's willing to speak truth to power, a political home that, with WFP elected officials, many of whom are Democrats, are unafraid to take the fight to the bosses, to the billionaires, and to the corrupt politicians, some of which even in their party, right? And this is a time of monsters, so we need a time of leadership. And so WFP recruits from the bottom up, grassroots leaders that are accountable to labor unions instead of being accountable to capital and billionaires. And we think that in a time like this, the idea of a third force in American politics that align very deeply with institutions like CWA and are willing to stand up and fight the fights in Congress, in state houses, in city councils, is more important than ever. So we do the opposite of fracturing the vote. We actually build and bring new people into the electorate. Thanks for the question.
Sure. Thank you. And I think we have time for one more question before we come up on 9 o'clock. And President Cummings, I think it'll go to you, and then maybe you can just wrap us up after you answer the question. We mentioned lawsuits before. It seems like some of the lawsuits are having an effect. Is CWA taking any legal action against the Trump administration to protect our members?
Yes, thank you, Beth, and that's a great question. Yes, we actually signed on to a lawsuit here recently with SEIU and a couple of other unions against Doge, actually going into the Department of Labor and looking at information that we feel like could be detrimental to our union, not just our union, but other unions. We have grants, we have apprenticeship programs that are being funded by the Department of Labor that we don't want jeopardized. We don't want stopped because they're helping us, right, in building our movement and helping those in this country that are interested in becoming part of unions. And so the idea for us is to fight back. We talk all the time about when we fight, we win. We're just not going to allow the president to constantly give us issues and not fight back. Simple as that. Understand clearly that CWA is going to do everything we can to protect our union, and we're going to partnership with other unions that are coming under attack. Our staff in HQ today actually participated in a rally that took place in support of our government workers from AFGE, as well as some other unions, and we're gonna continue to stand up and fight back. When we fight, we win. And let me just say this: there's no one person that's going to save any of us. We have got to save ourselves. And so I think it's important that our members become involved with the different organizations that you heard on tonight, as well as other organizations. I'm this week traveling to an NAACP board of directors meeting to talk about 2025 and how civil rights organizations can help us with this fight. So no, as president of CWA, I'll be doing everything I can to protect CWA's interests against the administration, as well as partnershiping and assisting other unions that may come under attack. So thank you so much for that question, Beth. And I just want to thank all of you for being on the call tonight. I think it's important that we continue to have conversations about what is taking place. And we want all of you to know that our legislative and political department is doing everything we can to keep our members informed about things that are taking place in this administration that could be adverse to what we're trying to do as a union and the labor movement in general. So it's important that we stay connected. I know that we will do that. We will be transparent, and we will send out information as much as we can in hopes that you will join this fight with us to push back. You've heard some of the speakers on the night say, we need to push back on Congress if they're not doing enough. We need to make sure that we're attending rallies and different other engagements when we can to make sure that our rights and our democracy is protected in this in this country. So again, thank all of you for participating on tonight. I want to thank all of our guests that were on tonight, and I certainly want to thank our legislative political department, Beth in the communication department, Senior Director Shane Larson, that's also on the call with us, and the executive board for participating in this most important call on tonight. And know the idea is not just to have this one, but continue to have calls when we feel it's necessary to keep you informed about what is taking place with this administration's and the possible attacks, against working people.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.